Yep.
September monthly. So I pulled a few cards that is going to be pretty much for all of us. Maybe our messages, maybe our general reading for basically this transition. And it's kind of like really telling to me. It starts with Milky Way. It was the first card that came through it, and it kind of like really got me giggling because I am rewatching those series through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. So if you haven't seen it, it's kind of like really interesting to really see how basically that physics interact with most likely even our spirituality, and how we are comprehending those, I mean, additional or alternate realities, right? Because as you know, Earth is the part of the Milky Way, but Milky Way has probably billions, you know, it is probably one of billions of galaxies that we actually know in the universes that we are absorbing, right? It has, I don't know, billions, probably 400 billion stars, and it is the one that is the closest to the sun. And it's kind of like interesting because they have managed to, everything that you see in the sky is basically past. You're not seeing the present because it takes time for the light to come and reflect. So everything that we see is not really what is going on in that moment. So it's kind of like a concept in itself that kind of like we need to kind of like wrap our head around. So this, it's kind of like really interesting for this month because we are going through basically Virgo transition and actually also Libra, so I can see actually both kind of like sending their own messages, right? So this is really telling us to regain our perspective. Maybe we strayed away, maybe we kind of like lost gravity, maybe certain people don't gravitate toward us or we don't gravitate toward them, right? It simply kind of like it is time to possibly step back and then allow ourselves to detach in order to kind of like gather information, right? And it's kind of like going into that internal aspect of ourselves that kind of like observes life instead of life basically happen to us, right? It also is basically telling us to look at things from different point of view, from kind of like understanding that, hey, we are part of this big universe, right? We kind of need to kind of like understand not only where our position is, but also how everything can affect us and how maybe even the small emotion can affect the entire basically universe. So it's kind of like really interesting because the next time is dream time, and this is kind of like this beautiful story. And I know that the Australians are going to correct me because this is talking about the Aboriginals of Australia, right? And this is basically their place that exists before time. So it's just like when I saw these cards coming out, I was really giggling because this also talks about how basically Earth was formed, right? And they're talking about that they had this ancestral ancient ancestral, what is the word, spirits that kind of like remained in the kind of like very forms that was created, so including all these animals and hills and stars and all this kind of like other features that we kind of like see around us. It's basically kind of like basically continue to present today their gods, right? So this is really talking about our either individual but also I believe group spiritual template that kind of, in particularly in this card, talks about things that have been passing down from one generation to another. So we are talking about at least 60,000 years, although those aboriginals would say they existed since the beginning of time. So in one those traditions, right, there is this creation story that is involving this Daijiraidu, which I think it's pronounced, and correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of like hollow, right, log that kind of like emits kind of like woo, that kind of like droning sound when kind of like is being played. It's kind of like really nice. It's kind of like really gets you into this vibration, and you kind of like really start feeling that connection when you hear it. So, you know, kind of like it is again time to kind of like sink deeply and understand that sort of like you are that crossover between spirit and physical reality. So it's like a breathing, comes in and comes out. What are you letting in and what are you letting out? Maybe it's going to be kind of like some kind of realization, because this is very much like Hermit card. It talks about solitude. No, it doesn't talk about loneliness. It really talks about the quality that we need to have in order to kind of like understand that, you know, sometimes we need to pull things inside of us to understand, express our own creativity. Maybe something got stuck. Maybe there was like sort of like stalemate. Maybe for some reason certain things couldn't happen. Maybe they're not part of the big picture, right? Because it could be that you're talking about a person. This is this card called Loyal Heart. And it's kind of like really amazing to really see, because as you know, Libras are always kind of like thinking in those terms, right? That, you know, there is like this royalty. And what I really like about this card is like that these two owls are actually looking in each other's eyes. So there is like this big heart, and there is like this big understanding between the two of them. This kind of like I really feel was more or less talking about us personally needing to reconnect. Maybe we got disconnected. We need to reconnect and understand how our actions are affecting other people. That also, even on the lonely island, the tree is going to grow and be magnificent, and nothing is going to stop, not even a storm, because the light always can be found, right? Maybe we need to find Loyal Heart. Maybe that is what is happening, because I really think this is really addressing the later part of the month, but that's maybe some kind of like self-understanding that we need to kind of like come to. Maybe this is really talking about our partnerships and friendships and romantic relationships, right? Maybe they have some qualities in common. It is really good to kind of like see this, because part of this reflection is going to be, this is the mirror of me, right? So this is really talking about also us being dedicated and devoted back to our friends, to kind of like express that faithfulness. And I really think it's going to really be all around, kind of like understanding that maybe we pushed too far or we didn't do enough, and kind of like coming into this balance. It is kind of like really, really interesting, because this is telling me that your kind of like long-term loyalty to your goals is going to become kind of like very evident in this world of conditions where, you know, all our aspirations for success kind of like sometimes assume form kind of like in reality, but success is nonetheless looks like taking shape, and it was inside job over here. From what I see, we kind of like really need to kind of like in all this kind of like process stay flexible, because if we are inflexible, what do you expect to come out of that process? We kind of like have to kind of like come to this kind of like bigger perspective that is basically talking about here. So I really would not advise any kind of like stubbornness of any kind. Now, interestingly enough, that we did get here Thunderbolt and the Outsider. None of them is a good card. So it is really telling me this is that basically Tower card. But here, as you can see, lots of people are jumping off instead of from Tower, from here. This is really telling me about ego death. It is really telling me that we need to shed some aspects of ourselves that maybe we were like really holding on for such a long time. Maybe we kind of like felt as an outsider. We could always maybe meet people who would always keep us, you know, some kind of like foot away, or kind of like it was always a distance that we couldn't somehow overcome, even if we tried it. The truth is, like, this came reversed. So this is telling me that maybe something is happening, that we are even clueless about something, because we all build our own egos, we all build our own life. It's basically all this house of cards. It's like all that ego stuff, where especially we are getting really like more and more kind of like divided with choices, and we don't have any more universal news and universal things, and we keep looking for things that will reinforce our basically already viewpoint. And this is really telling me that this is something that you are needing to really deal with. Maybe this month you want to kind of try to just to listen to something different, attend to classes that otherwise you wouldn't attend, kind of like really talk to people who are much different. Because look at this card. Hello, hello, who came to say hi to everybody? Say hi, say hi here to camera, that's it, pretty girl, walk up. So this is kind of interesting, because some people don't like when my kitty cat Sapphire comes over here, and you know, this divining, it's all about observation and it's intuition. Intuition usually kicks in and clues in when you are really observant of this perspective. And this perspective is like, this is what happened. Just like as I was saying, some friendships and some kind of like love relationships will become coming to you to acknowledge that. Just like Safi jumped in, said hi, and I love you. And I really think this is like something we can really look forward. I think there are some conditions though, and these conditions would be few things that we really need to figure out. Also, maybe what obstacles we have created, and if this is a really big deal, or how to really kind of like get off that high horse, how important we are, because we live in really strange times, right? And this card, as I was just about to say, look at us through this fence, how beautiful these colors are. And of course, this little child looking inadequate, it's kind of like looking what is out there. I really, really want to be there, and what's going on. Maybe the child is in the garden and looking out, but maybe looking into something else. Now, I think the key in this picture is this basically chain. And look at this chain. It is opened. It doesn't take much to really take away this chain. So now these two cards together, what do you chain yourself to it? What kind of beliefs are you holding that maybe need to be released? You have to figure out if something that you were really holding as really important, this is who I am, without this I cannot live. Try to shed all these kind of like core principles to a minimum, and you will see how, you know, you're going to really be able to embrace more people as well as to be embraced. So this is kind of like a general part of the reading, and now we are going to go in the individual signs. Guys, I still have the speed up promotion. Still, if you order your own reading, you will get it much shorter. So instead of 3 weeks, you're getting in a week for the regular one. Instead of 1 week for a rush one, you're going to get it in 3 days. And urgent, it used to be 3 days, now it's like 24 hours. So kind of like make your pick, and you can check it via my website, cattarot.ca. And guys, let's not forget that there is a contest going on where you can win a 15-minute reading with me. Part of it is like leaving comments over here on Facebook or on Instagram, and that's going to be one winner a month that I'm going to pull from basically all of these guys. But there's going to be a much maybe faster way if you come to my live, which is every Saturday at 11 o'clock EST. You need to comment so we know that you're there. Just say hi, and you know, some of the moderators are going to kind of like make the pick. They can call it any time. You have to be present in order to get the award, and you get this like 15 minutes with me, and from that point you will just need to contact me and you're all set. And of course, nothing beats private reading. This is just your energy and me, and we are really looking down and trying to find not only what's up, but also what is the best way out of it. And this is it. Let's start with this month's Taroscopes. Libra, and very soon after this Virgo transition, it will be your birthday too. So in this month, September, happy birthday to all the early Libras. So as I was shuffling, the two cards came through, worth waiting for, and very, very soon. So interestingly enough, it says clearly decide what you want. So it comes to you now. Well, which sign has problems with decisions? Oh yeah. So you maybe have been patiently waiting for something and pacing yourself towards something, but looks like, you know, you have to kind of like generate that energy for something to kind of like really go in that direction. Maybe, you know, there are going to be some kind of like surprises, or maybe kind of like shifts in fate over here. But certainly, you know, it's kind of like really talking about some kind of like synchronicity. So you need to kind of like do your part, where you kind of like put your own mind toward where you're heading. So let's see the bottom of the deck and give your relationship a chance. For those of you who are in a relationship, it's talking to you about working on it. And it kind of like concerns me a little bit, because you guys are a little different for the rest of us air signs. You really kind of live for that kind of expression, live for that relationship kind of bonding. And if you give up, that really means you probably have already turned every stone. If you are not in a relationship, then I really think this is really talking about working deeply on yourself, working deeply on what is the kind of love you really want to attract in your life. And you have the Emperor. This is a really lovely card of the inside maturity, of kind of like inner maturity, where kind of like it's understanding, okay, so you know what, diamonds are great, but that inner peace is way more important. And kind of like it's possibility to have some kind of like possibly paradigm shift in this kind of like time period, where maybe you're going to even go back to something that you felt there is no go. Maybe you're going to shift it and see it from a different perspective. So let's start. I'll be telling you the cards as they come out, because not everybody knows my little kitty cat cards, but nonetheless they are really, really effective, because who can better express emotions than our loving pets? So there you go, love yourself first. And let's kind of like double it up. And let's leave this one from the bottom over here for us to consider and reconsider. Sorry about these motions. I just like wanted to see something where maybe you can see it better. There you go. Now, there is like this romance. Maybe something was heading toward disengagement. Maybe, you know, somebody proposed. Maybe you proposed. There is like this whole sense and feeling coming into kind of like this period. Maybe it didn't work out for some kind of like reason. There's a Queen of Pentacles. It's like definitely a marriage kind, but maybe there was not balance, because one is Queen, one is Knight, and this one really is what people talk about, Knight in the shining armor. It's a kind of okay with you for the first, you know, couple of days, but kind of like when it kind of keeps going, that somebody is writing you songs for you and stuff, like you kind of like get bored. You kind of like maybe something need more pragmatic approach, or one person had more pragmatic approach, one was like overly romantic, and it's kind of like given back. So you have Knight of Chalices, Queen of Pentacles, and Six of Pentacles. Six of Pentacles being reversed is talking about that energy was not flowing properly, or not having give and take, or only one person was just all give and the person was all take. And the engagement kind of like was really difficult, because you're a Libra, you're all about this kind of like equilibrium, so you're never in that kind of like balance. So hence you're continuously trying to, oh, how much I have to give here more to kind of add to this, how much I have to take here to kind of like rebalance those scales. And if somebody else is coming here and kind of like creating some kind of like mess in your life, well, it's kind of creates the mess. And I have that repetition of the Knight and a Queen over here. So it could be that you're dealing with some other couple that kind of like has kind of like similar thing, except the Queen was here upright and here is reversed. Now here we have both of them reversed, so this is telling me that, you know, somebody is goner kind of a thing, right? Versus, you know, maybe you're done with the relationship, and that kind of like decision will kind of like clearly decide what you want. You're kind of like in between the two worlds. I see this indecision here, I see this indecision here as well. So let's kind of like start the baseline here, flirt. That's kind of like the energy that you kind of like really want to get. Maybe there are issues with, maybe you need just simply new makeup, maybe you want a new hairdo, because when Queen of Wands reverses, she kind of doesn't really like how she looks, and she could be a little bit kind of like whiny, right? So maybe people you're flirting with will not take you entirely seriously over that. Well, you're getting the Sun and a 9. So yeah, I think new hairdo, kind of like getting a new dress or something, will actually turn that energy into something really, really positive. The Sun really shines, no matter how bad spread is, if it is and yours isn't, that getting this is kind of like that, again, marriage card, again, births and celebrations, and actually that inner kind of like feeling of inner satisfaction, inner happiness. There is like definitely a shift over here that I'm seeing. Like maybe you have been sort of like laying dormant and accepting certain situation because maybe something looked right, but now you're kind of like either feeling that somebody is not good for your children, that, you know, children can mean few things. Of course, it can literally mean children, and somebody kind of like Knights are not staying, and again we have the Sun, and somebody's maybe losing their appeal over here, or maybe you're feeling they're not good in a situation with children. But children also talks about our inner child, kind of like understanding what you really want, right? 9 of Wands with that fire energy, he's like really vigorous. He's going to come and jump and grab you and kiss you and tell you that he loves you, and he'll be gone in the next second. So it's kind of like a really good experience, but it's also very unstable. They don't tend to stay, right? And maybe look at it, you have a karma card over here, like the 8 of Swords and the Judgment card reversed. Well, this card is really good reversed when it's reversing, right? Because here is like the sense of fear and instability of the situation, and not knowing in which direction to go or how to go about this, right? Where I think things are turning around. Maybe you're realizing a need for nourishment, self-nourishment, and nourishing that needed inner child kind of thing. Now the Judgment card. The Judgment card is definitely talking about kind of like past lives. You know, we meet people all the time, and we always think, oh, the next one and the next one and the next one will be better. The truth is, we keep meeting the same person all the time in the different body, and we need to resolve the issue, not the person. And that issue is inside of us, how we react toward anything that comes our way. People always kind of like give us their crap and stuff. It's kind of we react to it. Are we reacting to that with a smile? Are we reacting to their kind of demands with a fear? Is somebody kind of like not stabilizing us and destabilizing us and kind of like in and out of your life, and you're reactive to it, trying to argue with that instead of saying, well, you know, it's a bit, I'll find somebody else. I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but it literally is, who do you trust more? Do you bet more on you or some stranger in your life? Because the Judgment card tells me, being the karma card, that there is like some repetition either the pattern is repeating, or the person is repeating, or the events are repeating. And there is like this difference between the right and wrong. It's almost like you're at a crossroads and you know that taking the right is the right way, but you take left because, you know, they tell you in the instruction book not to take left, but you think nobody's watching and somebody takes left. So somebody here is doing those shortcuts. Maybe, you know, you have people in your life that you don't know what to expect from, and this is kind of like bothering you. Again, this is repetition. You do deserve love. And maybe you settled. Maybe you settled. Maybe you kind of like feel that you did some wrong things, that you're not the easiest person to be with, and hence you have to kind of like, you know, give your level of tolerance back. But at the same time, look at this, like Four of Pentacles. He is sitting on his box of toys. And when you close yourself from, you know, bad things, this is like the ultimate card of putting the walls up. Maybe somebody really harmed you here and did something wrong. It's like sometimes people continue being in a relationship where it's self-evident it is wrong. It is because people think, well, heck, it's so easy to remedy this. It must be something that they're not seeing. It's kind of such a little adjustment, literally, and people stay and things are not being remedied, and always kind of like have these arguments about that. And then we kind of like erect these walls, and the walls are never really good, because in a relationship we need to kind of have this back and forth, right? I don't know, maybe you're dealing with Sagittarius. I'm seeing kind of like lots of energies of Sagittarius and Leo, but also water that I see over here as well. And let's see the Aries ultimately. But Leo, look, these are really hard to pinpoint as a sign in a general reading. And the reason for that is that like we all have the combination of different elements and we all exhibit them differently, even in the same situation. And that's because all the stuff that we go through is making the fabric of who we are, and we change all the time. And even though we have karma, and this will be also good for you guys to get your karma reading, but that karma changes. We clear it, or we add more dirt to it, so whichever it is. So you deserve love, clearly. You need to open that box, because maybe you erected those walls to prevent yourself from pain, but there could be somebody who is just right. Remember how I said this is reversed, this is reversed, but there is like somebody who kind of like wants to get in your life, right? Kind of like who, like, you know how I said this person comes and kisses you and it's exciting, then he says goodbye, he's gone by the morning. This person is not gone. This could be the same person who maybe wronged you, and that's kind of like place you into kind of like panic mode. Maybe you didn't want to extend yourself, but this person is now maybe reappearing. Somebody's like really trying to work. So there's like King of Wands and Ten of Cups reversed, putting a brave face over something. So there are like some difficulties possible that you have in a relationship. Possibly you're very guarded toward this person, and that's why I keep telling you, give your relationship a chance. I don't like to see codependency ever as a card, because maybe you're recognizing that you are kind of like going through this codependent back and forth, breaking up, making up again, or continuous arguments, and it's kind of like more arguments than good times kind of things. And however, this kind of like being merged with Ace of Wands is telling me you are not going to grow or allow things to grow in that direction. So if you give something a chance, it's going to be kind of like healthy chance, and I can absolutely see that. This is kind of like you're cutting off any kind of like stuff where one person is a victim or narcissistic, another person has to give, and it's like never the end of that kind of like giving. So you're going to kind of like develop a big backbone, and you're going to kind of like stand by your own principles, stand by your accomplishments, stand by who you are and where you are heading. And even if this means that this is kind of like going to end up with whatever, needing to let somebody go, or somebody telling you, well, this is the price of the admission to come back to me, you have to do that. If this is not your best interest, then you're going to bury this codependency down, and you're really fighting it. You really are fighting it, basically it's a very difficult thing to shake off, because like we just fall into that, especially now we just kind of have this generational shift where, I don't know, especially if you're in your 40s or higher, where we were raised with sort of like, we girls need to be sugar and spice and boys have to be, you know, stuff. So we kind of like had this like roles assigned to us, and this is now all shifting. So everybody's like on this kind of like slippery kind of like ground. But this again is telling you, look, positive thinking is really important. You kind of like cannot base things on your past experiences. You have to keep going. You have to keep planning. You have to understand that your past, look at this, is still kind of there with him. But the solution is in looking forward, in kind of like, Two of Wands is like a really, really good card with sort of like having a new plan. However, it's also that indecision that kind of like traditionally with you is not easy thing to do. But then you're getting this Queen of Swords, which is you. So from all these queens, now this is the third one. Maybe you have been going through this kind of different aspects of yourself. It's like House of Mirrors and seeing yourself this way, that way. And finally you're coming into this balance. She's laying down her sword, as you can see it, and attracting a whole bunch of peace. She also minimizes anything, so that planning, going back to that, how to stay optimistic is if you let go the dead weight. If it doesn't have to be in your life, let it go and keep moving forward. It could be you and a child, that could be that there is like something that needs to be done and redefined, but you have to start from that nucleus, which is you and possibly your family. If nothing else, this means moving forward. And then you have like in your emotions the Passion kind of card, and also you have the Empress, and the Empress is representing Venus. So you're like, you're ruled by Venus. So this again represents you, and just very much like here, it clearly tells you that, you know, you can sometimes have to make this decision between passion and between if this passion will enslave you. When the Empress comes reversed, the Empress reversed is talking about a clingy nature and not really finding her place under the sun, but it's kind of like a need to turn things around, whereas the Empress upright, you would feel fully comfortable and beautiful and efficient and in balance. So beware of things that actually take you out of that equilibrium over here. You have the Temperance, and you have another karma card here, the Ace of Swords, and we had this 10. Probably this means clearly that this month you will be really redefining your own relationships. This month you're shifting in a completely new way. So the old ways, the king is dead, long live the king kind of a thing, right? Because the Temperance means the right thing in the right place, right situation, kind of like the victory. I am moving forward. I am kind of like enjoying things moving forward. It's kind of like cutting off things, because the sword cuts both ways. So you're cutting off inside of yourself unhealthy parts of you and insisting on kind of like growing in a kind of like positive way. You might be dealing with an exes, kind of like, it could be quite a few actually of exes. It could be that there is like an ex-husband or ex-wife over here, and maybe this is the relationship you're dealing with. It looks like it could be some kind of separation, but I don't think really you want to grow with, because it looks like this person was manipulator, or you're dealing with somebody who may be coming into your life. It says pay attention to the red flags. This person is married. King of Pentacles is very likely married guy or something very solid, but they forget to tell you this, and they wine you and dine you, and then they have to have a business trip when they have obligations at home, and so on and so forth. And then when their hooks are in you, then they just mention to you casually, well, yeah, it's nothing serious, we actually separated, all kinds of lies. So these are these red flags. If somebody doesn't call you in the evenings or on weekends, these are red flags, guys. You have to kind of like acknowledge this sooner than later, and I think you will, because look, you're getting the Fool and you're getting Six of Swords. Fool is kind of like trust. Maybe somebody's going to ask you, trust me, trust me, trust me. Well, don't. simply don't trust them. In fact, this is really telling you to move away from them. You kind of like, you kind of like are probably going to end up into something more more turbulent by continuing on this path with these red flags. But you need to know how to acknowledge them. You need to know that you need to also trust yourself and your instinct about a person. Do not fall for this person is going to treat you very well, to be full of gifts, great vining and dining, sort of like all this kind of bachelor and bachelorette style, where basically, you know, this kind of like ambience environment of these fake dates cannot be sustained. And they are doing this hardcore press because they want something from you, right? And be very careful, because yes, there is a passion, and I can see this passion is like really kind of like exhibiting over here, but everything is asking you more or less to ground yourself. This card clearly is talking about, by the way, religious factors can also talk about marriage to me, and it of course can talk about core values that people have, and these core values are really important. If your core value is I want monogamy, and their core value is hey, I'm going to screw anything that comes my way, I don't think it's going to work. So instead of debating and you have to see it my way, you know, there are lots of fish in the sea, and you're going to harm yourself less by kind of acknowledging that and getting the self-respect. The High Priestess is a very, very, very smart person. That's that psychic energy, intuitive energy, where you don't even need to talk. You know, sometimes you sit next to people and you feel their eyes on you, but you feel also that kind of like going through, like, I mean, that X-ray energy. So she actually watches what people do. So yeah, it's very nice, you told me that you love me, but you didn't call me, and you stood me up for a date, or you know, like, I mean, now you're coming up with all this stuff, and you knew that telling me that you have a husband or wife, you know, that was a lie, and that kind of stuff. So she is simply kind of measuring things that way by just simply observation, right? And you have the Strength, and you have the Knave of Swords. Maybe you're going to go as far. Strength is a really, really positive card. Strength really talks about us conquering ourselves. I think it's going to be lots of stuff happening this month where you're not going to go in any kind of like huge arguments, but you'll be just cutting people off if they don't get to be on your list, the Libra list. If they are not making you happy and being supportive, I think they're just going to be erased. You're going to cut them out. That kind of like minimizing sense. Be kind of like careful, because you're going to also have lots of people coming your way. You have the King of Wands, you have Knight of Wands, you had Knight of Cups, and you have the King of Pentacles. You might be hot stuff. So choose wisely. If something gives you a pause, don't judge people by how they treat you, but sort of like how they are really displaying things about themselves. When people say, oh, you know, well, if people are rude, if people are rude to the white stuff, if people are just showing the stories, oh, I cheated my ex-wife and I moved in kind of like somewhere, right? You know their essence. You know that there is something about this person that they're telling you. People will tell you about themselves. You might do a little bit of your own spying. Knave of Swords kind of like has this kind of stuff, so kind of like quietly kind of like observing them and checking them out. And this is a kind of very good solution, because this is telling you kind of like go slower, really go slower about that. Ultimately, you are understanding what you need for long term. This is the card of self. This is also card love yourself first, and that's definitely influence of that kind of like Virgo period, right? Look, your self-respect makes you more romantically attractive. When people cannot pull the fast one and wool over your eyes, people really either try to get very angry on you, toward you, or they disappear. Either way, they're obviously not the right people for you, because how did you expect to move forward? I don't have to explain this to Libra, that there is like no balance in that kind of like thing. So there you go. There is like still, you don't know how to get there, but you know that you are willing to walk this tightrope blindfolded. It's kind of a decision that you need to make, and as it said here, clearly decide what you want, that it comes to you now. And then we have like this another nine of wands. Well, this 9 is talking about kind of like being embattled, kind of like going through a situation, maybe fighting for something or fighting for somebody, but no more. I think you're kind of like moving in a new direction, and that direction is the direction of maturity that I see. So Libra, I pulled one more card, but before I get there, again, this is a general reading. Please check me out at kettarot.ca and get your private one, because that's the only way to get your vibrations. And in the meantime, check your ascendant and so on and so forth, right? And the moon sign. So one more card that you got was unexpected visitors. So let me read this for you. If you expect the unexpected, you will be prepared for miracles. Detours, surprises, and paradigm shifts. That's what I mentioned. Expect the unexpected. No matter how detailed your plans are and how clear you believe the road ahead to be, there are times when the best plans are waylaid by unforeseen circumstances. At first, detours may seem inconvenient, but the surprise turn of events signals that the adventure of life is beginning to get interesting. No one can plan for synchronicity, for fate and destiny to meet, except spirit, who knows what you can't comprehend for now. Life is full of surprises, so stay on your toes and enjoy this exciting new adventure you weren't expecting. There is a plan for your life that may not match up with your agenda. And I think that plan is clearly in these cards as well. It is like really telling that you are really waiting for your time, for your happiness, but also at the stage you are not willing to really negotiate your own happiness. You are right now kind of like needing to get maybe better focus. You're still kind of like having this moving target, and the best part and the best kind of like way to kind of like start is love is understanding who you are, what you can contribute, what you can bring. Enjoy the flattery that's going to happen this month. Enjoy this like vast amount of people coming your way. Flirt, enjoy, but at the same time, do not keep energy from the people around who are not the right people for you. Flirting is nice. It's nice to get a compliment, but do not allow these people to kind of like go further in your life if these people are inadequate, or for some reason you just like don't see that this can grow anymore. So my dear Libra, I really hope to see the comments from you and to get your opinion, because I want to know who are all these people. And you see this kind of here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please just click on this and you can see Safi was kind of like trying to eat her cat terrapin. And again, please show up on Saturdays for my live session for your chance to win 15-minute reading. And until the next time, you know that I love you and all the best.